Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. All right, I got to work at the tutoring center in half an hour, so I want you guys to pray for me because I ran into an uncomfortable situation last week, and I have to see the student at the center of that situation. Not that I dislike her or anything, but it was a situation that required problem solving and has not always turned out well for me in the past. Now, something interesting happened. I went to Google search. You know, Google now has an AI. You can literally ask it life questions on what to do about this, and I'm going to heed the advice today. The advice was pretty good. And so it inspired me to go back in time and ask about previous experiences. I asked about other jobs where I ran into toxicity. Yesterday, I talked about how a former boss of mine had written me up, in my opinion, unfairly. What would you do if you got written up for blah, 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 blah? And I wrote it into Google. I was astonished by the answer. I wish I had that answer 7 years ago. And then I asked Google some things about difficulties I had in high school. I was bullied in high school and I ended up leaving and taking a GED. What would you do if so and so did this to you? So and so did that to you. And so I really love I wish I could take those answers and go back 25 years. Of course, AI didn't exist. Google itself didn't even exist at the time, I don't think. Oh, it did, 1998. Uh, and then, got to admit, I indulged a little bit. I asked Google what would happen if Evelina Falenta, she had mysteriously gotten pregnant despite not having a partner, because I had dreamed about that a few nights ago. And then I asked, what if DNA tests showed that it was like an identical twin, and how would she feel? What if her kids also they had the same abnormal DNA, and the body automatically cloned itself, and eventually, 1,000 years from now, there were millions of Evelinas just roaming the earth. What would happen? And so eventually, Google AI claimed that it would lead to a civil war with the Evelinas against the rest of the world for some reason, because they would be seen as subhuman. And then I said, what if the Evelina team won? And Google says that it would lead to an extinction. I indulged a little bit because Google AI was so good at some of these answers. Now, where I run into trouble is I become really dependent on it. In the middle of a phone interview for a job, I will literally use Google, not for technical questions. I won't cheat on that because technical questions I have to eventually handle on my own. But for soft issues, like asking when can I start, and I really want to start on a certain day, how should I negotiate that? Negotiating my pay, negotiating I will literally put that as I'm speaking. I've gotten really good at asking questions and making sure my typing noise is not too loud, and holding the phone in a direction that my typing noises will not. Anybody ever do that? I'm just curious. When I'm chatting with my girlfriend, I will do that. And where it really hurts is that then I have to see these people in person, and it probably shows that there's a huge difference, right? But I've gotten really addicted. I wish all this technology existed back when I was dealing with those write ups, right? I mean, certainly, maybe at the moment I'm being written up, I can't think of it, but I can go home and search, right? Or when I was in high school, maybe at the moment of the bullying, I couldn't do anything, but I could go home and search, right? Uh, but it scares me how much people could cheat. I could have written a whole novel about Evelina Folenta's strange. Maybe I wouldn't use her name, but this really beautiful girl who just has a relationship with herself, doesn't want to get involved with any guys, but her body just reproduces itself, generation after generation, and it could repopulate a planet, or maybe she could go to another planet. And so I don't know why I decided to indulge in that. Uh, but Google claims that if there were millions and millions of Evelina Falentas, she would become less attractive, kind of like a hyperinflation of Evelina Falentas. I disagree, though. I think she would be just as attractive, even if there were a million of them. What do you think? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.